Hey guys, what's going on? Hey, what do you do? Hey, you brought food. Yeah, I was hungry. What? Okay, catch it. Oh, you got it. Good. All right, great. Okay, we can get started. We'll have some snacks later or something.
No, little wolf, you have the wrong idea.
I have the wrong idea about what? About snacks? What, we gonna eat a whole meal? Well, I just thought a little something, tide me over till dinner.
No, I don't mean that. You have the wrong idea. This is the club. It's called the Don't Eat Rabbit Club.
Yes.
Don't eat rabbit club.
We don't eat rabbit now. John, Gabriel, and me, we stopped eating rabbit.
You don't eat what? You don't. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we just don't eat rabbit anymore.
You mean you don't eat rabbit any more than a few times a week?
No, we don't eat it at
all.
What are you gonna eat? All right, this is a box with some kind of fruits and vegetables. All right, okay. What is this here for?
Well, that's what we eat. Would you like to try some?
Well, all right. Let's see. What is this? Like an onion. This is an onion, I think. Let me see. Well, all right. It's not like sautéed rabbit. It's not like grilled rabbit. It's not like boiled. It's not like rabbit stew. I guess I would say it's barely palatable, which means that I guess in a pinch I could eat it. Yes. All right. But what am I getting out of the deal? All right. So I stopped eating the rabbit. What is this rabbit? What do you like me for? I didn't do anything for. I was about to tell somebody to catch you. I like it. Well, okay, all right, enough. So already. What we get out of this is is that the rabbits like us, right? Are they gonna do our laundry for us from now on or something?
No, they're just really nice to play with and talk to.
Yeah.
They're really intelligent creatures.
They are intelligent.
They are. Do they? Okay. Well, how much do they know about Napoleon? You said they were intelligent. So are these rabbits ready to hear about Napoleon, or are they? You're sitting. You're ready. You're all ears. I could say literally all ears. Look at those ears. All right. Yeah.
I'm also all
I must say they have big ears. All right. So maybe they're good listeners for a change. All right. Not like some wolves. Present company not accepted. Napoleon. All right. What are you supposed to know about him? All right. It's a guy. All right. He was born about 250 years ago. He's short. He's born on an island. He's He's got and on the island they speak. They don't speak quite the same way. It's like it's like if you were to go up to Boston and try to have a conversation with somebody. They would kind of talk like like that. Like that's not what your country could do for you. You wouldn't even understand what they were saying half the time. All right. So that's the way they spoke on this island. Okay. People made fun of him. Not on the island, of course, okay, because when he was there, everybody talked that way. It's not like, oh, you have a Corsican accent, and oh, you do too. Let's laugh at each other. No, they didn't laugh at each other. All right, they laughed at people who had a different accent. However, all right, at some point, the mother decided to send this boy, who later would be known as Napoleon. All right, she sent him off to the mainland. He could go to a boarding school, all right? And he's in there, and he's
What's
learning.
A boarding school?
It's a place where you live. It's not a school you go to every day, take the bus, take the metro there and back. It's a place you actually live. You sleep there, all right? And so that means that you're alone at night, or you're with the other people at the school at night. Sometimes they come around and they tell funny stories, or they beat you up or something. Anyway, all right? So first of all, okay, he's short, all right? So they make fun of, oh, look at that short Corsican. Because he was shorter than the other boys, all right? But it worked to his advantage later, because it was hard to shoot him. People tried to shoot him. He was too short. They missed all the time. All right, but he didn't appreciate that advantage, okay, when he was young. He didn't appreciate that would really come in handy. When he was older, he said, oh, I wish I were taller. All right, and that was important, okay, as you'll see psychologically when we talk about later. Anyway, so he's in a boarding school, all right, and they're making fun of him, and they're making fun of his accent. Oh, you can't talk right. And of course he says, but you can't talk right. But so who talks right, the Corsicans or the mainlanders? Well, it depends on how many there are on each side, right? Okay, if the mainlanders go to Corsica, all right, there'll be more Corsicans. They'll say, you talk funny, okay? But if one Corsican comes to the mainland, then suddenly he doesn't talk right, okay? So it's not an absolute thing, all right? It's relative or subjective or objective or I don't know what it is. But anyway, all right, so this is really terrible, okay? And he says, I'll get back at you guys someday. And they just kind of laughed at him, probably. We don't know everything. He didn't keep a diary, okay? So we don't know. People told stories, but they could have been making it up just to, to get famous or rich or whatever. So they don't like him, so he spends all his time studying. So he gets really, really good, like at math and tactics and everything like that. Okay, so he knows a lot of stuff. He's always alone with a book, so that people leave him alone. And so he's alone. So they leave him alone. Then later, okay, he's got all this knowledge, right? And he's thinking, how can I get back at these people? Or get back at somebody else? Doesn't have to be the same people, but I have to get back at someone for making fun of me. All right, so what does he do? All right, so he joins the army, right? He's in the artillery, right? He knows everything about shooting guns, all right? He knows big guns, and he says bang, bang, bang. He's at night. He hears bang, bang, bang. He's a little boy. He's running around, bang. Okay, because he likes the sound, all right? He likes the sound. All right, he likes the sound of things like fireworks. Like we have fireworks. People like fireworks. Okay, they didn't have fireworks back then. They had cannons that would blow your head off. All right, it's not like sometimes you get a cherry bomb blows off the tip of your finger. These are cannons. They blow off your whole head. All right, so it's not fireworks. It's like weapons. So he joins the artillery. All right, and he says, I got to get a chance to show people that I'm really tough. And then one day, the opportunity arises. It's like a big group of people. They're not happy at the king and queen, the leaders of the country. They're not happy because they don't have enough food. And like the queen doesn't understand. She said, let them eat cake. It's not because she thinks they could eat cake. It means she doesn't understand that. But I don't know, maybe they made that up. Actually, they made that up. Okay, actually, the Illuminati made it up. They made up all the problems, okay, so that they could get rid of the aristocracy, because they didn't need them anymore. They didn't need all the kings and queens in Europe. They said, we can replace them with our own people. We got all the money. We got all the money, they just have the weapons, okay? But we'll take the weapons away from them. We'll convince the people that the king they're poor because of the king and the queen, okay? And they are, of course, because of the king and the queen, because they don't pay them enough. But the king and queen don't have the final say, all right? But the people don't know that. How can the people know that? The people who write the pamphlets and send the runners around to give the speeches in the small towns, they got a monopoly on the information, all right? Or oligopoly, or whatever. They know everything, or they pretend like they know everything. And they tell people the king and queen are guilty for all their problems. If you have a sore back, it's the king and queen. And people rose up and they said, we got to get rid of this king and queen because we're hungry. And we need food. And if we kill the king and queen, we'll have more food. They didn't understand there'd be less food. The people who had all the food, had control of the food, told them that that the king and queen were taking all the food, eating all the food. And that the king and queen were probably like enormous. People maybe thought that. They said, where does all the food go? Maybe the king and queen eat all the food and they're as big as a palace. Or they didn't know for sure. Okay, there are all kinds of legends and like urban legends and stories they made about people believed them because they didn't have TV, all right? They didn't have cable. They didn't have radio. They didn't have anything. They just had stories, all right? And how do you believe somebody? Well, somebody's dressed before you in a nice suit and he's got the perfume and everything and he gives gold coins away to people that come and listen to him. Okay, you're going to listen to a guy like that, all right? So you just have to fill his head full of a bunch of nonsense. And then it's like you tell the people and they believe and then they run with it, all right? And so how did they run? They ran all the way to the palace with it, all right? And they're trying to get rid of the king and queen. So what does Napoleon do? He comes along and says, I got a solution. I'll keep you safe, all right? You got to give me command and I'll keep you safe, all right? And so what does he do, all right? So the crowd's there, they're hungry, they're coming up, they got pitchforks or mops or broom handles or something like that, all right? So Napoleon, he sets up his cannons right in front. All right, and he said, don't come. And they say, what come? And he said, don't come. You shouldn't do it. I dare you, but you shouldn't, but I'm daring you. And so they took the dare, right? And he shoots the cannons, like grape shot, like, bah, and scatters them. They run away, and some of them died, of course, all right? But Napoleon became famous, all right, for that victory. Victory over his own people, all right? Okay, later he was like hero of the French, but first he killed a bunch of French, okay? But they forgot about that conveniently. They didn't talk about it all the time. They said, yeah, we know, but let's move on already. Let's just forget the past and then talk about, killing other people from different places. Not our own people. We'll kill other people. But everybody was not his own people for him because he was from Corsica, right? So he wouldn't go to Corsica. He didn't go kill Corsican people, all right? That's a historical fact right there, okay? People don't know that, but I'm telling you, he never went and killed Corsicans unless they were part of his army. But no, he didn't. All right, so he said, okay, I'm a brilliant tactician, all right, I know everything about what to do. That was the kind of tact he had. So he talked about himself or the king and queen. But later, all right, when they actually got rid of the king and queen, they needed somebody to lead the army, all right? So what does he do? He takes a bunch of people together and he decides to go out and attack these other places and show that they're better. He decides that France is the greatest country in the world that's ever been, okay, and that's obvious, and it's so obvious that we're going to go and make people believe that, okay? We're going to take them over, we're going to take all this stuff, and then they will understand that the French are the greatest and have the best ideas and the best sauces and the nicest, dresses and music. That's what they decided to convince people of by killing them and taking over their land, all right? So that's what the French did. But how can they do that? Because people don't understand right away that, we want the French to come and give us new laws and culture and books and monocles and all that stuff. Okay, the people didn't understand that. Okay, so you had to force them to understand it. You have to say, get out of our way. Okay, we're going to bring you this stuff and you're going to like it, but you have to take it whether you like it or not. So otherwise we'll shoot you.
This is so boring.
This is so interesting, John. What are you saying?
All right, if you're not interested in what I have to say, nobody's keeping you here, all right? The meeting's over, all right? These rabbits are listening patiently to me, although they look like they're sleeping. Hello? Hello? Okay, they're still all ears. Look at that, all ears. He literally figured it. And you're not interested in anything I have to say? You can go home, sir.
I'm so interested in this.
Teresa's interested. You can either sit there quietly and stop complaining, or you can go home, you can do whatever you want, but don't interrupt anymore. Do you understand me?
I remember.
What's one of the first places he went? Okay, so he took over a bunch of Italians, he got rid of the Italians, but what was really important, he decides, I'm going to take a bunch of guys and go over to Egypt where the pyramids are, okay? Because there's probably, like ancient knowledge that will make me, the biggest tough guy on the block. So he takes a bunch of guys with rifles and a bunch of scientists and other people. He says, I'm going to go find out everything there is to know. It's going to help me to be the most powerful guy and kid on the block. So he says, we're going to sail. He gets the whole flotilla together. And this was in the past, all right? It's not, he decided, we're going to go to Egypt. It's not like now, and you get on a plane, you're there in a couple of hours. It took weeks, especially with a whole big flotilla like that. And he had to take all that stuff right across the sea, Mediterranean Sea, to Egypt, all right? And he goes there. And he says to the English, you got to get out of here, all right? Because it's my town now, all right? I'm going to be here. There's not enough room for the both of us, here in all of Egypt. It's a big country, but the British, they had to go, okay? Because Napoleon had the bigger guns and more guns, all right? So they left. And says, to show that I'm really important, I'm going to take the Sphinx, this kind of looks like a lion, with a woman's face. Didn't originally have a woman's face, used to have a lion's face, okay? But many years before, they changed the face, make it look like a pharaoh or a woman or Cleopatra or somebody. We don't know. All right, doesn't matter. Like some kind of pharaoh, all right? And so he says, I'm gonna show the whole world that I'm tough now. And he put a bunch of fireworks and gunpowder, all right? And he blew the nose off her. Blew the nose off. Ha ha! There, ha ha! You'll never find it again, all right? And I don't know what he did with the nose. So people say, what do you do with the nose? We don't know what he did with the nose. He probably scattered it, crushed it into tiny pieces, or maybe he took it home as a souvenir. Maybe it's still buried under the sands there. I don't know. And then he says, okay, and then the pyramid, he says, I'm going to go inside the pyramid. I'm going to spend all night there. Like nowadays, kids go to a haunted house. The friends say, I dare you to spend the night there. And kids who go there, all right, when they come out the next morning, they're brave because they spent all night alone with their fears and they overcame their fears. Other kids maybe see ghosts and they're traumatized for the rest of their lives. They go postal when they're 40 or something. I don't know. I don't know what happens to different kids. But Napoleon, he goes into the pyramid and he comes out. And we don't know what happened, but we know it was terrible for him. Terrible. Nightmares. He said it was terrible. I'm guessing he probably didn't have the chakras aligned, and then the pyramid itself was a little out of whack, because it hadn't been used for so long, all right? So that happens to pyramids, apparently. Anyway, so he spent all night in there, and he's probably not got the most positive thoughts of anyone. It's like he spends all day thinking, how can I set up cannons to shoot these people? All right, you go into a pyramid with thoughts like that, gonna have a bad time. That's probably what happened to him, all right? Anyway, he comes out. Eventually, he decides to go back to France, but he takes a bunch of stuff, a bunch of knowledge. Maybe he learns some secret knowledge about something. We're not sure. Probably some people who went with him, though, got a bunch of knowledge they didn't even show him. He thought he was in charge, and that they were just along for the ride, but really it was he who was just along for the ride. The Masons, the Illuminati, whoever they were, all right, they got all the information, all right, they brought it back, and they were able to take over later, okay? But for now, the nominal leader of the world was destined to become Napoleon, okay? Because he had drive. He had drive from being made fun of when he was a little boy at the boarding school, all right, with the Corsican accent. All right, so he gets back to Europe. He says, I'm going to take over all of Europe and make them use my laws, which seems like a bad thing, but actually the laws were pretty good. They were better than a lot of the places he invaded. But again, the people who lived in the places he invaded didn't know that. They had different runners with different, scrolls to be read, and town criers and all the people who gave him information that Napoleon was bad. The French thought he was good. The other people thought he was bad, so they had these conflicts, but he made alliances. Like he would go to some kings and say, hey, let's get together and we'll fight this other country, and then you can take part and I'll take part, and then we'll get rich and those other people will suffer. All right, then they did that together. And then Napoleon would make a deal with somebody else and say, hey, you know that guy I just made a deal with? And then we took over the country. All right, let's make a deal with you, and then we'll take him, and then and we'll divide the spoils. All right, so he's always making these alliances. All right, and getting people to go along with his ideas. Okay, and they thought, oh, this will be better for me, but it turned out to be worse for them in the end. Turned out to be worse for everybody in the end, really. But okay, but that's the way they did things back then, and they still do them that way, actually. But that's the way of the world. Okay, it's called diplomacy. And we say to be diplomatic means to be polite. Actually, it means, so he's making a lot of alliances. People say, I'm going to defeat him in battle. But he does something really clever, like he attacks them at a point where they don't expect. They say, that's not playing fair. He's supposed to, dress up his guys in one color so we can see him easily and shoot him, and they'll be dressed up, and we'll agree that we're going to meet here in 2 weeks' time, and you'll have this many soldiers, and we'll have a battle. No, I didn't want to do that. He said, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to play by those rules, okay? That's just going to that's going to make me lose, okay? I'm going to take over everything. It's not going to be like before, when we had the knights, they would agree to fight, and they'd be in armor, and they would whack each other, okay, but they would never kill each other. It was only the plebs, that the plebeians, the slaves, or the people who didn't have armor who died, but nobody cared about them. Okay, the knights themselves never died, and before, like the generals, they would say, oh, let's get together and have a war, and it'll be like a big war game, because they didn't have games back then. They didn't have computer games. They didn't even have board games. All right, they had no games, maybe chess, okay, but that's not like fighting. It's like they wanted to fight, or like people now have models and like model aircraft carriers with remote control planes dropping bombs. I mean, like you got 40, 50-year-old men playing games like that. So they got together armies because they had plenty of money and it was pretty cheap. You didn't have to pay them anything. You just impounded them into service, okay? You inducted them forcefully into service, shanghaied them, and you made them go wherever you wanted them to go. But Napoleon, he didn't want to play by those rules, okay? So he would take his soldiers, he would force march them, so they go really fast somewhere behind the enemy lines, and then like burn a bunch of, villages, and maybe shoot some people in the back, and they would take over the country, and they'd have to sue for peace. And he'd say, okay, I won't kill you anymore, but you got to do stuff I ask. You got to give me a bunch of stuff, and you got to go with my army, and we're going to get a bunch of armies together. We're going to invade like a big country like Russia. All right, so that's what he decided to do.
Russia! That's our country!
That's right, that's where we are right now. That's where he was here. He might have been in this room. You never know. I mean, this building didn't exist back then, but he might have sat right on the place where this building is built. That's a real possibility. So he says, all right, this is what we have to do. We got to get everybody together, a really big army. We're going to attack Russia. I know it's a big country, but we'll have a lot of soldiers, and we'll just march really quickly and take them over, and then the world will be ours. Mine. He didn't say mine, he said ours, but he meant mine, of course, because he's going to stab those other guys in the back. So, Napoleon, he's got a 1,000,000-man army. He says, let's invade, all right? And he invades, all right? And they're marching, and then the Russians are retreating, and there's a big battle, and there's a lot of people there, and a lot of people die, but you can't say that one person won or another person lost, but Napoleon's still got enough power, enough strength. He keeps going forward, right? And he finally gets to the capital, right where we are right now, right where we're sitting right now. He stood here and he said, I am the king of the world.
I am the king of the world.
There you go. That's what he said. I'm sure that's what he said. But in French, it was like, Je suis le roi de le monde. Then he waited for the Russians to come and surrender and say, okay, you can have the rest of our country. Please just don't kill us and give us some good laws, please. And he said, and he sat and he waited and he waited and he waited and he waited for a long time until they finally came out and they said, No. So he had to go away.